my goodness, amigas. Welcome, Rudy Espinoza, to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast. I'm excited to have you here. It's been some time and amigas, you're in for an amazing treat because he's going to talk to us about everything economic power, wealth in the Latino community. And I'm just excited to have you here, Rudy. So welcome to Amiga Handle Your Shit podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jackie.
Well, listen. It's been some time since we last spoke, and what's always pressing in my mind is like, okay, how can amigas learn more? Learn more about wealth, learn more about how we can thrive in our communities when the shit is hitting the fan. Because I mean, it is, and there's a lot going on. And I know that you've been in the trenches for over 20 years. And so, for amigas out there that do not know who you are, I always want them to get perspective on your background. And so, if you can let us know, Rudy, where were you born? Where were you raised? And all the wonderful things.
Yeah, totally, Jackie. My name is Rudy. I was born in East LA and I grew up in West Covina in the San Gabriel Valley. I was raised by a single mother who migrated to this country from Zacatecas when she was 18. And she met my father in an English class. My mom has a third grade education, and my dad has a second grade education. He's from Jalisco, and they met and they were both in the restaurant industry. My mom, when she met my father, was actually she was a housekeeper, and then my father was a line cook. Then my mom got into the restaurant industry herself as a hostess in a restaurant, and then later on became a server. What I tell people, and I'm really open about this, is that my dad was not well. My father was really he was an alcoholic, and he there was a lot of violence in my household with my mom, and so my mom made the courageous decision to leave him when we were young, me and my little brother, and that decision really impacted my whole life and my trajectory. I often think that if my mom would have stayed with my dad, I wouldn't be here talking to you, likely. I wouldn't be doing the work that I do because my dad wasn't a good influence. So my mom raised us by herself for most of my life. I think she finally left him officially and got a divorce when maybe I was like in fourth grade, fifth grade. And I was raised by this woman who was trying to handle her shit, dude. um, she was really like really trying to survive
Yeah,
in this
yeah.
country as an undocumented migrant and somebody that was trying to make her way to get her kids to a better place than her place. And so when I was young, my vision in life was to get money. I wanted to get rich because I wanted to support my mom, and I didn't want her to work in the place that she was working at. That was the reason why I went to college. I was the first in my family to go to college and graduate. I was a business major because I assumed that if I was a business major, I was going to get money. And what ended up happening to me, Jackie, is that I took an ethnic studies class. It was an elective course. I went to UC Riverside, and I selected this class because I thought it would be easy. And I was going through the motions, just trying to get this degree. I was probably like a B student, a C student, and I took this class, and it changed my life.
Ooh,
And what I
really?
realized was that the experiences that I had as a kid were not rare, they were not unique, and that there were many people that were experiencing similar things. And I started to learn that there was systems at play that were marginalizing certain communities that were making it harder for people like my mom to advance. And I woke up, I realized, wait a minute, like the work I have to contribute to is deeper and bigger than just getting rich. And so that took me down the path to the work that I do today. And so I did finish that degree because I was already halfway through, but my whole career has been focused on how to get resources for our community generally. because it's not about my family getting rich, it's about all of us getting the resources that we deserve. And that's going to require a variety of different tactics. It's going to require addressing the systems that are keeping us without resources. And it's also going to require other intentional programs that help people today. And so that's what inclusive action does, is we're advocates, but we're also lenders and intermediaries that try to get capital to and to the hands of our community.
Wow. You have excuse me, you have such a huge mission. And it's going to require some time to unpack, but let's get in it. So, you had an impetus. First, it was your mom. The mission was to get her out of poverty, get her out of where she was in the trenches of domestic violence and build a better economic situation for her and of course you. But then that became bigger when you started learning about ethics. So tell us here. I know that this is a defining moment in our history, as it was a defining moment for you when you were taking that ethics class and you started in the trajectory of going into wealth building and planning. Because I know before you became the CEO of Inclusive, you were doing other things. Now, can you take us through those steps? Because obviously, it's not like, okay, one day, okay, I'm gonna be the CEO of this big organization. I need to get my leg in the door and find my path. So tell us, what was that first step for you, other than getting your education, but how did that land for you?
Yeah, yeah, totally. So, and just for clarity, it wasn't ethics, so I like ethics too, it was ethnic studies. And
Ethnics. Oh,
it was the study of it was a 101 class, so it was a
oh,
study of various social justice movements.
okay.
It was the first time that I saw that there was a Chicano civil rights movement in our country that I didn't know existed before that class. The people that looked like me that were advocating for others. And so that really inspired me, along with the Black civil rights movement and the Native civil rights movement. That class opened me to realize that there's a lot of power in working together. So so when was finishing school, imagine me sort of invigorated with these new ideas
Yeah.
and this new conviction. I did not want to work for the man, quote unquote. I didn't want to work in a corporate environment because I was like, I feel like I got to be somewhere else. I got to do something different. And so what I did is I applied for school just to like learn a little bit more. And I applied to grad school and I landed on urban planning because urban planning is the study of cities and the study of community. And I figured, oh, this is a place where I could learn about the different elements of a community.
Right.
And the short of it is that not only did I meet very important people that are still friends of mine today, is that I learned that money and capital is critical to the development of a community. And this is my lane. I need to figure out how it works and how we can manipulate it to support people. After grad school, I worked for a consulting firm. And
Mm,
my I was it was a consulting firm that was working with banks, big banks, helping them invest in low-income neighborhoods. And my job was to educate these institutions on how they can work in neighborhoods like Boyle Heights, where my office is, or South LA, or Northeast San Fernando Valley, Pacoima. I was the broker, uh, um,
mm,
metaphorically. I was the one that was helping them understand, and I was doing research to help guide their investments. That was like my first sort of entry point into understand working on how we can move resources into the hands of our communities. Okay. But the thing that I learned, Jackie, in that experience working at that firm is that I was learning in real time the importance of working with people that were generous in their
mm,
knowledge and their relationships. These guys that I worked for were so smart and so generous with their knowledge. And it just really set me up. It just built a really solid foundation for my career because I was learning all the time. They were introducing me to people. They were making me realize that I was an equal.
Yes.
They did
Were
not
they
make me.
not Latinos?
One of them is a white guy, and another guy, the other guy was half Latino. Yes,
Mm.
yes. The oh, and we could come back to the race ethnicity thing in a
Yeah.
second, because I learned a lot about that too,
Yeah.
during the experience. But these guys really brought me under their wing. Were very encouraging about who I am as a person and my unique identity, and just were generous with their networks. Like when I went with them to events or meetings, they made sure that I met people. So after that gig, I went to go work at the AARP Foundation. They were actually one of our clients, and so I remember even the transition to that job. I approached my boss and I said, "Hey, I'm looking for. I think I need something. I think I've been here for 5 years, and I'm looking for. I want to get a raise. I wanted to have a different experience." And then that boss was like, "Let me help you think about it. I don't know if I'll be able to provide that for you, but like, what else can you do?" And so, one of our clients at that time was looking for someone like me.
Mm.
So I ended up taking a gig there, and that was short lived. And this was a big company. AARP is one of the biggest nonprofits in the country. If they were a for profit, they would be in the Fortune 500, at least at that time. And so it was like a big corporate environment, and I wanted to experience that.
Right, 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 right.
And the big lesson that I got from that, Jackie, was that just because you have a lot of resources doesn't mean that you're really good. And
It
no
doesn't
shade on.
translate well.
Yeah, and it's actually no shade because there's a lot of smart people that work there, but it was I learned that when sometimes when a company is so big, they move a lot slower.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and I think that, and so I was running up against like, man, these are some good ideas and some good opportunities, but we have to like take it up the chain. It was like a big company. They had a lot of resources, but it's just everything moves so slow. I learned that I don't thrive in an environment like that.
Yes, yes.
And so that was like a really important learning for me, is that like, wow, like I'm unhappy in an environment like that that's like
Yeah.
very bureaucratic and slow. So after that gig, they offered me a job to go to DC, and I declined it. And I declined it because my community that I was around were really encouraging me to think about what city I wanted to invest in and where I could learn, what city I could learn from. And LA was the place, had been the place.
Right,
And
right,
so I
right.
decided to decline that job. I remember some people were telling me that I was silly for doing that.
Mm.
And then I took a gig in South Central doing micro lending at a
Okay.
nonprofit. So those are some of the experiences before inclusive action.
Right.
And inclusive action initially was a volunteer organization that I was working through all these experiences I was volunteering with. And my transition to the organization came sort of abruptly, where I had a
Mm.
experience, something that happened at my workplace. And I thought, you know what? My favorite meeting of the month is my board meeting
Huh.
with this volunteer organization. And how do I spend more time there? How do I think that there's something special we can do. And I decided to quit my job and do this full time. And that was over 12 years ago.
Oh my goodness. Thank God you did. Thank God you did.
Well, I mean, I feel I'm a lot happier than I would have if I would have been in DC or some of the other gigs. But I mean, it was a little bit of a leap of faith because we didn't have any resources. And so it was an entrepreneurial act of thinking
Right.
about how am I going to, my mom, I remember, would tell me when I was doing that, she was like, "Don't they pay you? Like, why would you leave that job to go do this? Like, how are you gonna get resources?" And I was like, "Well, we have a couple months where I could survive for a couple months." And I moved out of my apartment and moved in with one of my board members who had an extra room. And it was like a huge, like, it was a leap of faith, but I didn't feel scared. I was
Yeah,
actually like
yeah,
really excited at that time and felt like there was an opportunity if we worked hard enough. And so
yeah.
that was the beginning of me coming to work at Inclusive Action over 12 years ago.
Fascinating. You mentioned something that really conjures an interview I had with the interim CEO of Latinas in Tech, who is Nikki Baru, who happens to be South Asian. And I was interviewing her, and she's worked with so many corporations. She's like this top level person. And she said, in her experience about corporations, she says she's in the business of making elephants run. Because as you were saying, it was all bureaucratic. Corporations are bureaucratic. They're slow. They're slow.
Mm.
So you're making businesses run. And I really love that. And I'm so grateful that you actually touch upon the fact that corporations, while they have a lot of money, they're not quick to make the changes. So now you're here at Inclusive Action making changes. So tell us, how did you use that knowledge of like, okay, how can I make this more efficient to work with our community? Because I mean, when you get that big, it's slow, but I know that inclusive action is bigger than 12 years ago. How are you making inclusive action be on the cutting edge of programs and wealth building for our community?
I think that one of the values that was seated at the beginning of the organization was founded 15 years ago. So the first 3 years are volunteer. I think one of the key values was that community members know what they need to make their lives better. Like they don't really need anybody to tell them what they should be doing. And we were really clear that we should be responsive to their ideas as opposed to the other way around. And when you have that awareness, then it's just about moving on that. There isn't any sort of deliberation. Our first campaign, well, I'll take a step back and just tell you and the other amigas that are listening that we are an economic justice organization.
Mhm.
We are concerned that working class people don't have resources to live the lives that they deserve. And the reason why they don't have resources is because of systemic problems, and because of the capital systems that we have in place that don't get money into their hands. And so inclusive action advances justice, economic justice, by being an advocate on the policy side and by getting money into the hands directly into our small businesses and then workers. And we do that as a lender. We are a low interest lender. We're certified by the state of California. We're a certified community development financial institution by the US Treasury. And so we use these tools, advocating and lending, systems change and cutting checks to help people advance economic justice. Our first campaign was the effort to legalize street vending, which we started to work on back in 2008, 2009. And it was a coalition of partners that we worked with this vision of how do we change systems to support street vendors in our city. At that time, street vending was completely illegal in Los Angeles. And
Right.
we were one of the only major cities in the country that did not have a system for sidewalk vending. And so we had a conviction, Jackie, that we talked to vendors and the vendors were like, dude, we're doing this because we don't have it, we don't get paid enough in our day jobs, or we can't find a job. And so we have to create our own businesses to pay our bills. And at the same time, the city is coming after us, and we're worried about that. And there isn't a way for them to formalize. They told us what they needed. And so then the natural step is to start working on that. And so that was like the beginning of the LA Street Vendor campaign. All of our initiatives have come as a result of that same inquiry of learning and then responding to that. And I think that the challenge as we get bigger, just like some of my experiences that I shared, is how do we stay true to that
Right.
dynamism and relationship and proximity to community members, and we have to constantly be looking at that. And we're working on that now at Inclusive Action, is thinking about how do we get better about building relationships with community members so we can continue to be responsive and dynamic and effective.
Right. Right. Exactly. So what's the next thing? What's the next campaign for you?
Well, we have a lot of campaigns moving forward. Just yesterday, I'll tell you, just yesterday we learned that Governor Newsom signed our latest piece of legislation, Senate Bill 635, the Street Vendor Business Protection Act. Um, you and your listeners know that Los Angeles is under attack right now. Our country's under attack by mass agents that are abducting our neighbors. But they're not only taking our physical bodies, they're also trying to get our data. And so at the state level, we advanced this policy, Senate Bill 635, with Senator Maria Elena Durazo, to protect the data of street vendors from being shared with ICE. So now,
Yeah.
because Newsom just signed this law yesterday, data that the state of California gathers cannot be shared with ICE, so that will be prohibited moving forward. So it's like a big deal.
It is a
We
big deal. It is. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the team worked really hard on that. We are also in active litigation against the IRS because the IRS has an agreement with ICE to share taxpayer data.
Yeah.
Um, a few weeks ago, the IRS ICE requested the data of almost 1.3 million taxpayers to find where they live and what they do. And we are trying to stop that. And so we are in active litigation as a plaintiff to stop that. And then we
Oh,
have a
yeah.
variety of other campaigns around public banking, making sure the county's investing in immigrants appropriately. Um, and then on the lending side, we have low interest loans that we're offering to small businesses that are trying to grow. We're doing some really interesting real estate acquisition work, but it's all within these two buckets of changing systems and helping people get resources.
Wow, this is very comprehensive. I feel like you're top to bottom. And I commend you for that because you're thinking outside, you're thinking macro level versus like taking one thing and then running with that, which is it's not bad, but I believe that working the policy side while also on the lending side, I think it really is a beautiful synergetic situation.
Yeah.
And it lands to breaking that generational wealth gap. So, can you tell me a little bit about what do you see here in LA? What else can we do to break that generational wealth gap? Now that we're learning from you the systems that are not built for us, but you're breaking them along the way. So what can we learn? What can we do?
I mean, you could do a lot. I think everybody has a different role to play right now. Um, I was hanging out with I met some artists recently, and they were interested in learning more about how they could be involved. And I was encouraging to think about how they can use their skills as photographers, as painters, as designers to help shape the communities that we want to see, how they can help us tell better stories and, shape the narrative around what our communities are really about. When I talk to lenders and bankers, I tell them the same thing of like, what is your role? Like, think about how you can leverage your skill set to build a community that we want. So I don't have one like specific answer because I think that everybody has a different role to play and a different skill set. I think the role that we have to consider though is that our role, we have to find ways where we're connected to each other.
Yeah,
That I think right now there's a lot of division, and then the federal administration wants to divide us and is using hate and a variety of different forms of rhetoric to keep us apart.
mm,
And I think what we have to do is use our skills to bring us closer together and to showcase how we are interconnected and we need each other,
yeah,
Jackie.
yeah, yeah.
We need to really walk towards solidarity, and that's going to be us bringing all of our superpowers or different superpowers together moving forward.
Right, right, right. Yes, how can we bridge that gap? Because I mean, there's such polarization, and I mean, I'm in the middle. Like I understand this side and understand that side. And so how can we come together like as our next step? Especially when I know our statistic says that 1 in 3 people in the year 2050 is going to be Latino. So knowing that stat, I'm thinking, okay, how can we as a society mend that gap? How can we come together? And I know that you're working diligently in providing economic justice in the city of LA. And I know you're a board member of Unidos US. So I'm like, oh my God, this is so big. How ca I know you were sharing with me right now about, with your artists and letting them know that how can they use their skills to make change. Now, someone like myself, I am a lawyer and I left the practice of law because I was disillusioned. I was ill, disillusioned, depressed, anxiety, the whole thing. What can someone such as myself do to have a big impact? Like, do I go the policy way? Do I go through the lending way? How can I, and many of my amigas out there who are in positions of power, where should they go? What should they do?
I wonder how we are defining what a big impact is. And I
Mm,
wonder if sometimes in our pursuit of big impact, we are losing all the impact that we can have right now in front of us.
mm.
And I'm going to tell you a personal story. Should I share this story or not?
Yes, you said it.
I hope she'll be okay if I share this story. My yeah, how do I share this story? It's a very personal story.
Mm,
My mom is semi-retired, and she works in a job that requires her to be outside. Okay. She told me a story earlier this year that there was people that were crossing the street and family, and she greeted them in Spanish, Jackie. And it's like it's mostly a Latino community where she lives.
right.
One of the parents started to probe her and yell at her and say, "We don't speak Spanish here." And my mom has an accent, so if you speak to her, she speaks English, but like she has an accent, so you could tell that she's not from here, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
of course.
so this woman started to like, do you have papers? Like, I'm gonna call ICE on you. And my mom was like distraught about this. My mom's she's a tough cookie, but like, she was telling me the story, like, can you believe it? This woman did this thing. And I was like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, how do you feel? And like, are you being safe out there? Then she finishes the story because my mom's a little dramatic like me. And then so she finishes, she's telling me the story. And then she's like, oh, but like, let me tell you what happened at the end. And I was like, what happened? She says, well, the lady like walked off like mad. And a neighbor, a man came out of his house. And the man went up to my mom and said, hey, I saw what just happened. And I want you to know that I have security cameras all over my house. And so if you need any footage, I got you. But if you're ever in a situation like that again, I want you to know that you can knock on my door and I'm going to let you inside.
Mm. Aw.
So my question to you and to all of us is that an impact that he had? That
Yeah,
man, I don't know his name. Like that was a big impact for me.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was an
yeah.
impact from my mom. And so we don't have to get caught up, I don't think, in thinking about like how are we going to solve the tariff issue or like the civil war in the Sudan, or how are we going to bridge like the sort of the racial strife in the United States.
Right.
Maybe the impact that we have is how we treat each other, Jackie, and how
Mm,
we build relationships with each other today, how we talk
right,
to our uncles and aunts that voted for the administration and are maybe confused by what's going on. How do we engage with them and build our capacity to build relationships amongst us?
right.
So I think that is like to me the biggest impact that we can have. It's not about like big policy making and getting Hakeem Jeffries to like step up to the plate and like it's not about the political parties. It's about us and it's about how we connect with each other. And that man had an impact on me.
Mm.
Not
Yeah.
even my mom, he had an impact on me. And it's a story that I've been holding in my heart about like, yo, like we have each other's back.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
so how do I lean into that more? And then not only how do we have each other's back, but how do I talk to that woman that yelled at my mom? How do I build with her and just say, hey, why are you afraid? Like, what is it about? Do you know my mom? I want you to know her and tell, and she could tell you her story and her adventure. And I bet you have a lot in common. I want to talk to the other families that saw that and didn't say anything.
Mm. They were
You
probably
know,
too
they were
scared.
right. And fear is a human emotion. And like, how do we work together to cope with that together? You know what I'm saying, Jackie?
Yeah.
That is impact to me. So
Right.
I feel like that's like the journey that as I'm seeing and seeing all the issues that our communities are facing, that's like the work in front of us. The work is about how do we
Right.
connect with each other. And not with
Yes.
just people that not with people that agree with us, but the people that are don't know. They're a little bit lost.
Right. Right. I think we have a lot of disconnection, unfortunately. But how incredible for that gentleman to open his door and to just approach your mom and tell you and tell her that she's safe. Like, I got you. I got you. And so, how can we,
Tremendous, Jackie. I
yeah,
can't, you know, as a son, as her son, what do
yeah.
you think that means to me? You know,
Yes.
like
I mean,
it's like
it's a bit,
this man. I don't know who he is, but like it's like,
yeah,
wow, dude,
like,
it's inspiring to me. The dude's inspiring me. He doesn't even know, you know,
yeah, yeah.
impact.
Acts of kindness, acts of
Yeah.
kindness. I mean, that really, it really does stem from that. Like, if you're a kind human being, if you come from that approach, I mean, the world is our oyster, and we can have wonderful conversations, and we're never going to stop fear because fear is just something that happens within us. We get scared of
Mm,
heights, it's just, it is.
sure.
It's something, but how can we handle it? And how can we have people support us? And when we are in that vein, in that situation. This is beautiful. Thank you so much for that, for sharing that story. Because I know this is a vulnerable spot. This has to do with your mom, who brought you, who created this life for you as an immigrant, and dándole ganas, as we say, right?
Mm.
So I know we're getting at the tail end of our interview, and as always, I ask my guests for one or two tips on how an amiga can handle her shit. But I'm thinking that it might have to be that it's about building relationships and standing up for people. So tell us.
Yeah, I think it is about that. You know, I don't know how Amigas, you know, I don't have the experience of being an Amiga necessarily. I'd like to be an Amigo for sure, but I think that one thing that I'll offer is that one thing that has helped me in my work is investing in people and
Hmm.
building relationships. And I am seeking authentic relationships, not transactional ones, not ones where I might see you as something, hey, what's up? Let's take a pic and then moving on. I want to build authentic ones. And what that means is that sometimes we're aligned and sometimes we're not, but we're willing to come back to each other. And so I think that some of the most successful people that I've seen are the ones that see the value of people and relationships, because so many people have helped us at Inclusive Action
Yeah. Yeah.
and they've been with us along the journey. And I think that they invest in us because they believe in the work that we're doing, but then we also invest back in them, and it's a sort of a symbiotic relationship. And so I encourage people always to think about how are they investing in others and how are they investing in having an honest friendship with people. And if it's a really good friendship and you invest, usually you're going to get a lot out of it that's going to support your mission and your projects or your dreams. And like that's good, you know. It's and then we also get things by giving. So
Right. Oh, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Investing in people, authentic relationships. I think those are beautiful tips for amigas out there and amigos. Um, is there anything you'd like to say before we depart from this podcast?
you know, I appreciate you, Jackie, for creating space, and I think thank you for inviting me to be part of this conversation with you. And you know, right now this is a moment where people want us to be separate,
Right,
and they want
right.
us to be afraid. And as you said, fear is natural. uh, Fear may not go away, but we can cope with it if we stick together and we could talk
Yeah.
about it and say, "Hey, I'm afraid to go on the roller coaster. Can you come with me?" You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, truly.
Yeah, like, and that's how we cope in life. So we have to do more of like being together. And so I invite anybody to like connect with me in Inclusive Action and like let's build a community. Let's build together so we can cope with everything.
Amazing. I love that. And Amiga's out there. So we're going to put in the show notes all of your information where they can touch base with you. And I know that, I mean, I, for one, I'm like, oh God, I would love to be on the policy side. So that's the legal in me wanting to do that work still to this day. So, amigo, thank you so much for being on Amiga Handle Your Shit, Rudy. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of people, telling us how amazing this conversation was and how very deeply inspirational it was. Thank you so much for being on
But
Amiga Hand Your
thank
Shit podcast.
thank you.
Thank you.